Boston College spring game is no more.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all for joining me on today's episode. We have a busy episode today, but first of all, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So we get some scheduling news we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the Red Bandana game, the spring game. The NFL Combine is underway with Donovan Ezeiruaku killing it over the weekend. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what happened. And finally, basketball. And so let's kick it off with some scheduling news. On Thursday last week, after I recorded, Boston College announced their theme days for next year. And, you get your homecoming game. That's, I believe, the Cal game. You got Heroes Appreciation Day against Fordham and all those big things. But the big news, the news that everyone wants to talk about, is the spring game was also announced that it's not happening. Now, as I said on Thursday's show, if they were to cancel the spring game, the biggest piece that they needed to do was still honor Jay McGillis, who's a hero from Boston College, someone that they honor every year at A, for the spring game, and B, a defensive back gets a scholarship in his name. Last year, Bug Jones got that. So if you got rid of the spring game, you figured they'd do something else. And it came out on the press release that Senior Day is now the Jay McGillis Senior Day. So that piece has been tackled. But I want to talk about the spring game because it's a divisive topic, because folks out there, a lot of you guys have a lot of thoughts about this. There's folks that think I'm crazy. There's folks that think, oh, hey, AJ, this was fun. I'm going to miss it. And look, any excuse to get on BC's campus for fans is a positive. But let's talk about from this team's perspective first, why getting rid of this is a good idea. Right now, after spring practice is done, so BC ends on April 12th. When they're done, there's a spring transfer portal that opens up. Spring games, according to coaches, I believe it was Matt Rule of Nebraska, who we remember from the Pinstripe Bowl, who said that basically the spring games have become game film for coaches to watch and try to figure out, or staffs or in NIL collectives, to go and try to find out who are players that they want to try to poach. Who can they push into the portal? So there's been schools, Texas, NC State, I think Nebraska canceled theirs, that have all canceled theirs already because they don't want to risk this. And when you have a school like Boston College, who you're not going to get 3D talent at every position, if you lose specific key players, and just throw out guys, and I'm not saying that there are guys that are going to get poached, but like Jude Bowery or Lewis Bond or Turbo, like that's a KB Price. Those are guys you cannot afford to lose. So I look at the end result that Bill O'Brien decided, hey, I'm not going to put my guys out there, and I'm not going to make it easier for folks to try to figure out who they want to try to get so that my team is wrecked when it comes to the summer. I'm going to cancel the spring game. I think that's a smart choice. I think it's a smart choice by Boston College and their staff to do something like that because, BC needs every advantage that they can get. They cannot go into, they're going to be using these 15 spring practices to figure out what they have and to start planning and prepping for the 2025 season. The last thing that Bill O'Brien needs is to do that, and then some agent gets in your player's ear, and then you lose a key positional player for you. So I think that's smart. I think, as a fan, that's the other piece. Like, as a team, you can easily see that this is not like the best idea. And until they fix the way the transfer portal works in terms of timing and things like that, this is gonna happen more and more and more. Now, there's gonna be teams out there that are still having the spring game. I just saw Alabama, but it's Alabama. Of course they're going to have a spring game because they don't care. They have enough talent to do that. But I think, you know, the portal's going to have to, they're going to have to figure something out. Now, scheduling, I forget who I just read said this, but there was a coach that said that the NFL should, I mean, the NCAA should mirror their schedule to the NFL and have spring practice in the portal up until about April, and then spring practice start in June. It's kind of like, you know, OTAs for the NFL. Seems like a pretty smart move to me. Now, for the fans, this is, you know, you guys are fans out there. Many of you go to the spring games. Before I was doing, I mean, this was something I would go to anyways because, you know, the games themselves I'm going to say this right now. You're fooling yourself if you think the games are fun because they're not. Like there's no running. That like if you have a running back, it's two-hand touch. Like who cares? Like and then the passing games all go routes. They're not doing anything. Again, the other piece is they don't want to put any of their game film out there on ESPN or the ACC network, so they're not doing any of that. And then you're watching 3/4 of the game with the scout team and guys that you'll never see play next year. On top of all of that, I'm going to say this just frankly. I don't think Boston College as a school put much emphasis in this game at all. Like in terms of advertising, getting fans there, it always felt like an afterthought. Every time I went there, the campus was dead. The stadium was like a quarter filled with you know, crazy people like me that are watching. And there was nothing like there's no concessions. Like there's like one concession booth for the entire stadium. There's a bounce house and face paint for kids, and that's about it. Sometimes they have autographs for players afterwards. I mean, is it really that big of a deal that this is going away? All Boston College has to do, like I get it, you want to be on campus. I do too. Like in the spring and like early spring, it's a beautiful place to be. You know, the nostalgia, getting on campus is fun. Go to a women's lacrosse game at Alumni Stadium. It's a better deal. It's much more fun. Do that instead. Um, I reached out. You know, I put up a poll on Twitter, and the poll asked, "Are you going to miss the spring football game?" And because I got some people, and you're entitled to believe what you want. I'm telling you my thoughts, and you're in my comments, so I'm gonna respond back to you with my thoughts on things. That do want it, and you know, all the power to you. I don't care at all. Because you know, as a media person, I'm going to sound uppity here, but I get to go to the practices. Practices are way better than the spring game. I'm just going to say that right now. But those are close to the public. I get it. But when I asked the poll question, 67%, I had over 500 votes. 67% said they don't care that the spring game is leaving. I don't think students go. They didn't have the band there. They didn't have cheerleaders. Baldwin was barely there. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, find other excuses to get on campus. There's baseball, there's lacrosse. Right now, there's hockey. I know that's winter, but, you know, baseball, lacrosse, those are two that you can go to right now. And lacrosse, when they have their games in Alumni Stadium, when it's nice enough, have more fans there than the spring game. I think there was the nostalgia the curiosity factor last year of Bill O'Brien hosting it, but it's not that big of a deal. And you know what? Like, maybe they'll do right now they're saying all practices are closed. Maybe they end up doing something for the fans, but I don't think they will. And you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I'm sorry if you're missing practices like the spring game, but you know, it is what it is. It's gone. I'm going to tell you right now. From my perspective, I went as a fan the last couple of years. I took my son 2 years ago, and I took both of my kids last year. I don't think either of them honestly cared all that much. Like, it wasn't that great of an experience. It was kind of fun, but I don't know. I don't think it's that. Again, I'm reiterating that for most people, and this is why it's always dead. They don't care. And so this is just an excuse to get this off the tape. Off, you know, it's not going to be on ACC network now. It's because it's gone. There's going to be practices. They're going to have their spring practices, but it's going to be closed, and that's fine. You're going to get a better product when it comes to the fall, anyways. So I think that's the key point here. Now, in a moment, the Red Bandana game is an annual tradition that we talk about all the time here at Locked On BC, and it's going to be at a really a different time of the year next year. And I'm going to explain to you why it's not really all that big of a deal in just a moment. Attention, Locked On Boston College fans. Ever wished you could directly support your favorite Eagles athletes and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a direct way to support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletics representing Boston College. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make sure your voice is heard. Support the players directly and help share the school of Boston, the future of Boston College sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Boston College athletes the way they deserve. With transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. This is Locked On Boston College. AJ Black here. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. If you are doing this before you work out or on the car ride to work, thank you all who have made this a daily routine for you. We are a daily Boston College podcast. We do 5 shows a week for about 25 minutes each. Get your BC news analysis from an insider like myself. I hope you enjoy it. Now, the other big news item was that the Red Bandana game has been announced. Now, there was a lot of talk before this game was announced of when it would happen. Now, you look at the schedule of what Boston College has coming up for their upcoming season. And I know a lot of folks, if you don't know the story, it's of Wells Crowther, 9/11 hero who saved up to a dozen people in the World Trade Center. He's the man that wore the red bandana and saved those people before he perished when the towers collapsed. He's a Boston College graduate, played men's lacrosse. His story is pretty well known. You look at the schedule, and I'll pull it up, and I'm going to pull it up on Wikipedia, but that's the best one I could find at the moment. So when you look at the schedule, sorry, hold on a second. There it is. You obviously have to have a home game. You're not going to have it against Fordham. Then you have the 2 games buffering 9/11, Michigan State and Stanford. Those aren't going to happen because they're away. You have to have your homecoming game is always the last game in September. So that takes out Cal. You have Pitt on the road, and then you have Clemson, UConn, Notre Dame, and SMU. Those are basically your 4 choices. Clemson is going to be, it could be that. We don't know what's going on there. It's not going to be UConn because that's, a regional rivalry, one that honestly doesn't matter all that much. And Notre Dame has its own deal. So really, to me, it came down to between Clemson and SMU. Clemson's going to sell tickets on its own. It is. It's going to be a huge marquee matchup that Boston College fans are going to get up for. So the press release, I'm giving you a rambling long background talk about this. They picked the SMU game. It's in September. Now, folks get mad about this because they want the game closer to September 11th, but I just showcased why none of those games are going to work. So it's either October or November. You put it in November. You've done it before this way. There was I look back just a couple years ago. You had the Virginia Tech game, the one that Phil Dracovic came back in. That was on, that was early November as well. I get it. I get why you want to have it close to September 11th because that's the anniversary of his heroic deed. It's closer to 9/11. That makes a lot of sense to me, but I don't think it's, the other part of me thinks too that the fact that you're honoring Wells Crowther, where regardless of where it happens on the schedule, is what matters. You dedicate it, and to me, putting it with a marquee matchup is more important than the date on the schedule, honestly, because I would rather have a playoff caliber team like SMU or Clemson versus, sometimes you've had games that line up on there like, you know, a Conference USA game or AAC team. Like, you don't want those games. That's not the point. The point is to get eyeballs on Wells Crowther's story. That's kind of really what the gist of all this is. You want to honor him to the most people possible. And so when you play a marquee matchup, that's going to get more eyeballs on TV. ESPN's going to want to cover it. You might get it on College Game Day. Not the show coming on campus, but the story will, they'll do the Tom Rinaldi thing where they kind of showcase it. That's the important stuff. You want to get it so that more people know his story, because the further and further you get away from it, the more people that don't understand what Wells Crowther was, who he was, and what he did. You see the comments sometimes on, if you open up a BC Twitter page when they showcase the uniforms, there's people that don't know. They're making stupid comments about it, and it's because they're ignorant. They don't get it. And I think that's what you're trying to to beat here, is to get more people that are like, wow, because it's a very powerful story. It's one of the most powerful stories in college football. So you want to get it out there in a way that is meaningful and to maximize its exposure. That's the gist of it right there. And so I have no problem with the SMU game. I know some folks are going to get mad about it, but I think it's fine. I think it's a good one. You're getting a playoff team, and you don't need to do Clemson and Notre Dame, because I feel like they have their own. There's going to be just enough with those two. This adds that extra feel to SMU. So they're fine. Now, in a moment, I'm going to wrap things up. I want to talk quickly about how Donovan Ezeiruaku did in the NFL Combine and basketball talk. We'll get into all that in just a moment. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing the Celtics for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Wrapping things up here, Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. And this weekend, we had the NFL Draft Combine. And for folks out there that just love to know about, now we're going to have a full discussion about the Draft Combine and all the BC players on tomorrow's show with Mitchell Wolf of Eagle Insider. And if you know Mitch, you know that he's a guy that he gets it, and he knows he can tell you why the cone drill is important, or why the high jump is, the vertical leap is important for certain positions. He's the best at this, so we're going to get him in. But one player that we can talk about that's finished, that had his draft combine stock rise dramatically, is edge rusher Donovan Ezeiruaku. And for Boston College fans, this is no surprise. We watched him kill it, this last season, and make himself into a player that, is just an absolute treat to watch. Well, now he's national. And the draft combine was interesting because he didn't run the 40-yard dash. But what he did do, specifically some of the drills that I think are going to be really important for edge rushers, he was elite. And I want to read you what Pro Football Focus writer, I think it's Trevor Sakema, who I believe he started at Locked On. Well, he had his biggest top takeaways from the defensive line linebacker position. And his comment on Donovan Ezeiruaku is a section that says, Donovan Ezeiruaku is a big winner in Indy. Boston College edge rusher Donovan Ezeiruaku was a big winner in Indy during the testing portion of the day. At 6'2", 248 pounds, he didn't run the 40-yard dash, but his 35.5-inch vertical jump and 9'11" broad jump were adequate. while his 6.94 second three cone drill and 4.19 second short shuttle were the best at his position, ground and finished, above the 90th percentile for the position. He should be talked about as an NFL draft first round draft pick. So there you go. There's draft experts that aren't Boston College related saying that Donovan Ezeiruaku, he did what he needed to do. I believe he's going to, I would imagine he's going to run the 40 at his pro day at Boston College later next month or later this month, excuse me. But, I think what he did do, that's what he had to, that's what he had to do to solidify himself and put himself into that first round pick, because there's a lot of good edge rushers. You got guys like James Pierce of Tennessee and Shamar Stewart of Texas A&M or South Carolina. You got some really good ones out there to go along with Abdul Carter, who didn't participate because he's got that foot injury. And Ezeiruaku still continues to do it. And if you listen to his, even on top of all that, you listen to his interviews, and he's gonna be a first rounder. I mean, he's so well spoken and articulate and smart, and he gets it. This is a guy that gets it. And so I think that's what's going to make him an attractive first round draft pick. And we'll talk more about him with Mitchell Wolf on tomorrow's show. Now, let's end the show with just some updates. So hockey played this weekend. They won 2 games. One of them was a shootout win, so they only get 2 points out of that, but they beat UNH on Friday. UNH's goalie suffered a really severe injury that was scary in that first game. I wanted to, just send my thoughts and prayers to that family, because he got taken out on a stretcher. That was scary. You never like to see that happen. He wasn't moving for a while, and that was like the big story from that game. The second game, BC basically played with no, like their forwards, they were very, very thin. So credit to them that with that, they were able to dig deep to get that win. But let's also talk about basketball. We got to, right? I mean, I feel like I have to bring it up. If you were a Boston College fan, I commend you if you stayed up. What was the game? Started at 10 on Saturday night. Yeah, against Cal. And so BC had to win this game to keep their hopes at the ACC championship tournament alive. And they lost by 13. They started off again really slow. Luka Taves had his best game of the season he has been really, really struggling from the field. He led the team with 12 points. So credit to him. That's a good start. I guess that's, AJ's state. I've been bad about this. Might say something positive about BC for basketball, because I've been saying just negative things. But maybe I haven't. Maybe I've just been talking about them winning, which I guess is positive. But even in a game like this where they lost, Luka Taves had 12 points, and you needed to see something out of him, and you did. Additionally, Chad Venning got hurt. I don't know how bad this injury is going to be. I believe he missed most of the game. That's a big loss with 2 games left. Now you get 2 games left for pride. That's where we're at now. It's pride. And you play Clemson at home, which is Jaden Zachary's return. They are, I think, 24-5. They are really, really good. And then you play Pitt. And Pitt's all right, but the games don't matter anymore because you've been mathematically eliminated from the ACC tournament. So that's how bad the season has gone. In a year where the ACC has been bad. It's got Duke and Louisville and Clemson, but the rest of the conference, you could have easily scraped together some wins. It's where it's at. We can pick the corpse when it's done, but it's at roster management, is it coaching, is it all the above? But the season is almost over. We have a week left of it, and there's no dragging this on. It's going to be done in 2 more games. So that's positive, I guess. On tomorrow's show, we'll talk about the NFL Draft Combine. Ozzie Trapillo and Drew Kendall still have not done their bench presses at the time of this recording. That's a big one for them. And we'll have Mitchell Wolf to break everything down and talk about where these guys are starting to slot themselves in terms of potential draft rounds. We'll get into all of that on tomorrow's show. Thank you all. Make sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.